Hello, South Bend, and welcome on this Wednesday afternoon. I am here with Mr. Brad, who is going to be going over some Google Sheets tips, tricks, and other resources you might utilize with Google Sheets. So strap in and get ready for the ride.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Thanks everybody for being here. I'm Brad Cogdell. I'm a DIS at Jefferson Middle School, and we're going to go over Google Sheets. And I'd say just take a moment, just take a deep breath. Long week already. Take it easy. A lot of people get stressed out with seeing Google Sheets, like they see any kind of spreadsheet with a bunch of numbers and boxes, and it's like, oh, it's way too much. So hopefully by the end, we'll have simplified a few things. You were reminded of a few things that you haven't remembered in a while, and learned a few things that you haven't learned before. So that's my goal here. Nice and easy, no pressure. If you don't catch everything that's going on in the presentation, no worries. I think the most important thing about Google Sheets is to know that it can do something, and then the specifics you can always figure out, because I've learned the same thing over and over and over again, some feature that I'm like, oh, I know it can do that, but how do you do that exactly? And I type it into Google search and find it, and then it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I remember now. So that's how I use Google Sheets, and I think it's perfectly fine. Don't think, oh, there's all this stuff I have to know everything. You don't. Just know the stuff you want to know, and I'd like to do this, learn that, and then you'll use it and you'll learn it. So don't worry about memorizing formulas. I don't memorize them. I just remember the ones I use a lot. Okay, so let's start out. Feel free to ask questions. Chase is going to monitor that, and whenever there's enough questions there or something that needs to be brought up, he's going to interrupt, and we'll go from there. So let's start with, we have a blank spreadsheet in front of us, and we want to make a chart, some information, and put in this spreadsheet. I've enlarged this a little bit, made the sheet, the squares a little bit bigger, just so you can see it a little bit better on that smaller screen. Okay, so first up, let's say I want to make a spreadsheet that has the days of the week at the top and the student's name on the left-hand side. So I'm going to just pick a square. I'm going to leave a little bit of space at the top. I'm going to go to B2, and I'm going to type in Monday. Now I've got Monday in that square, and then I'm like, well, I want to do it for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, no Saturday, no Sunday. So the nice thing with Google Sheets is they have an auto fill feature. So I've typed in Monday, and you'll see the box is blue and highlighted. There's a little blue square at the bottom right-hand corner. This is the autofill button at the bottom of the cell that you're in that's highlighted. And if you see, it'll turn to a plus sign. And if you click it and drag it, the program knows that, oh, that was the Monday box. You're dragging it to the right. So you want that to be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and so forth. Oh, I went too far. We are not working on Saturday. We don't want any of that information. Okay, so we've got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and we only had to type in Monday, which is nice. Again, I'm going to try, any feature I do today, I'm going to try to remember to do it twice, just so people can catch the things that they want to catch on here. So again, I just typed in one of the boxes, Monday. It recognizes it as a day of the week. I hover over the blue square in the bottom right-hand corner. It turns to a plus sign, my cursor does, and I can click it and hold it down and drag it across to as many days as we need. Okay, so I've got the days of the week at the top. And then on the left-hand side, I want to put the students' names. For this case, I'm just going to put student 1. I'm going to put student number 1. Okay, so student number 1. And guess what? Underneath that, I want student number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. I do not have to type all those things in there. I'm just going to grab that little blue box, the autofill box, and I'm going to drag, I'm going to click and hover until it turns to the plus sign, and I'm going to drag it for as many students as I have. So again, I don't have to type all that stuff. Autofill will do a lot of that for you. So same thing for months of the year. So if I put January, and even if I just put Jan, Jon, Jan. If you click on it, it recognizes that as a month of the year, and you can drag that across as well. And it says, oh, you want 3-digit months of the year. I can do that. Or if the first one is not, let's say we do it full. We say January, if I spelled it right. Okay. And let's drag that across. And it actually says, oh, you want the full name of the month. I can do that as well. And it works. I'm going to show you one more thing since I'm kind of on the roll here. You can also do a series of numbers. You can do 5 and 10 and then 15. It says, oh, okay, you're going, I'm going to select all those. It says, oh, you're going up by 5. And it will finish out the pattern for you. So it's really nice. There's a lot when you have to do a lot less typing than you might have to do if you didn't have that autofill feature. So anyway, play around with that little blue box in the corner, drag it around, and you can save yourself a little bit of time. Okay, so I've started this spreadsheet. I've got days of the week at the top. I use autofill. I've got the students' numbers, student 1, 2, 3, and so forth on the left. Now, one thing you might want to do is you might want to change, like I want all my columns and rows to be the same size, but I want them bigger than what they are, because if you notice Wednesday, it cuts it off there. So I'm going to go and use the select all button. So in the top left-hand corner, there's a thing between the A and the 1. It's just a square or rectangle, but it's actually a button. If you click it, it's the select all button. You can also just do like Command A on the MacBook or Control A and on there, but it's kind of nice. You just click that button. Everything in your whole spreadsheet is selected. That's cool because then you can change the font. Like maybe the font's too big. It wasn't, so we're going to go back. Maybe we want to change a different style of font. You can change the background color while you've got everything selected. Say, I want every cell to be a light purple color. And it doesn't, spreadsheets don't have to be white, and you can change, mix things up, make it interesting. Okay, so I've still got, you've noticed I've got everything selected. All the column letters are turned dark. All the row numbers are turned dark. So it means I have everything selected. Now here's a real cool thing you can do. If you take your cursor and go up between the columns, so I'm between B and C, and if I hover my mouse, it turns from an arrow that's pointing upward, which it normally is, to an arrow that's pointing to the right. That means I'm over the column width point, and I can make it bigger or smaller. So I'm going to, so it turned from this pointer to the one to the right. I'm going to click and hold and drag it and make column B as wide as I want it to be. All the other columns match the same thing because I have them all selected. It says, oh, you want that column to be that width? Oh, you must want everything to be the same thing because you selected everything. So that's cool. You can make all your columns the same width. You can do the same thing with the rows. Let's say they're not tall enough. You can, the arrow changes when you're between the two rows, and you can drag and make it as big as you want. And every row will be the exact same height, whatever you change it to. So again, everything's still selected, and that's why it's changing everything at the same time. Now, there's one other thing you can do that's even a little bit cooler, I think. Let's say that you have some columns that have lots of information in it and some that just have like maybe yes and no in it. And so they don't need to be as wide. So here's a cool thing you can do. Select everything. So hit the select all button. Go in between those two columns like we just did, and that arrow shows up again. But instead of dragging it, this time if you double click with your mouse, it will automatically size the columns to be the width of the largest thing in that column. So if I double click right now, some things are smaller and they just fit the width of that day of the week. Wednesday is a little bit bigger, so it made that column bigger. If I had something over here that was just like 2 letters, 2, then if I resize all the columns automatically, if I just go between, it doesn't matter what column you go between when you select everything. If you just double click, it auto-sized row G to just be wide enough to get those 3 letters in, and that's as wide as it needs to be. So that's how wide it made it. So that's a really nice feature. Again, select all and this double click in between when you're in between the 2 columns. You can do the same thing for rows. If you double click when you're between the 2 rows, it will resize them to be just the height of whatever is in that particular row. So that's very convenient. 2 more things on this, and then I'll stop for a moment to see if anybody has any questions. Sometimes spreadsheets are just like, there's way too many squares. Like it gives you 1,000 squares to start out with, cells. Like, I don't need all that. I just want to do my little spreadsheet that's not going to be that massive. So one of the things I do is I try to get rid of columns, delete columns that I don't need. You can always get more of them, but let's get rid of those ones you don't need. They're just kind of cumbersome. So I'm going to select column H. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to click on column H and I'm going to hold it down. And then I'm going to drag with my mouse, or my trackpad, I'm dragging with my other finger. So keep it pushed down and drag. Go all the way over to Z, Z. Okay, all those columns to the right have just been selected. Now I'm just going to delete them. So if I go up to the column header, any one of those letters, it doesn't matter. Right click, I can go to delete columns. And all these columns to the right, there's nothing over here. I can't type over here to the right because those columns aren't there anymore. I can always get them back. I can always click on a column and say, I want to put a new one to the right. You can always add more on, so don't worry about that part. It's not like they're permanently deleted forever, but they're not in our way anymore. And then you can do the same thing for the rows. It gets a little bit more complicated with the rows because there's 1,000 rows. So you can click with, like a number 25, row 25, and drag your mouse all the way down to the bottom. There is a shortcut for doing it. I might show it to you later. But you have to wait till it goes down to 1,000 doing this method. There is a shortcut keyboard, but I'm going to hold off on that for just a moment. Teaser. Okay. And then you can just, again, right click on the rows and choose delete the rows, whatever ones you have. There's still going to be rows there because I didn't select all of them, but I certainly can here. I'll do it real quick. So, okay, so I'm going to delete all. I'm holding the Command Shift down arrow and it will select all of them at one time, and then I'm going to delete. Don't worry about that one. We can do that later. Okay, so here we go. I've got a spreadsheet that's a little bit more manageable. It's got a nice purple color to it. I've got the rows the right height. I've got the columns the way I want them to be. And so it's starting to be a little bit more interesting, a little bit more fun to look at. One of the things that's a problem, though, if I scroll down to the bottom of the screen, I can't see the headers. So I don't know exactly what day I'm on. I can figure out that D is wider, so it's probably Wednesday. But what I'm going to do is right next to where the button is that selects everything in the top left-hand corner, there's 2 little bars, little gray bars that surround it to the bottom and to the right. And when you see the cursor turn to a Mickey Mouse hands or Minnie Mouse hands, if you click it when you have the Minnie Mouse hands and you drag it down, this is the freeze bar, and it keeps those cells always up on the screen, no matter where you are on it. So I pulled it down to be back underneath my headers here. And so now if I slide down, they always stay there. They're always there for me to see. And I can do the same thing with the rows, or with the columns, I guess. I go to the Mickey Mouse hands, and when you see that, it says, oh, yep, you can grab that and drag it across. So if I had a spreadsheet that had lots of columns in it, I could always see what student, what column, what row I was on for that. So again, if you don't like it or you put it in the wrong place, again, you can just grab these, get the Mickey Mouse, Minnie Mouse hands, and move them wherever you want to. If you don't want them, just drag them and put them back. You made a mistake. You got to do it when it gets to the hands. Okay, now I have no headers on there, although I want them back. So I'm going to grab them and I'm going to put them back. So anyway, that's a nice, easy way to make it a little bit more manageable. Looks a little bit nicer. I think Chase, if there are any questions, you'll just interrupt me. But if not, I'm just going to keep
All
going.
right, yeah, we have one from
Okay.
Kelly, and she was wondering, can you highlight every other column or row?
Yeah, sure. So let's say that I want to do some formatting for Tuesday, Thursday, and the to column. Okay, so I'm going up to the top, and I'm going to. I have to remember. Forgive me if I don't get it right, but Command key. I'm going to hold down the Command key, and I'm going to select column C. I'm continuing to hold down the Command key. I mean, you don't have to continue, but when you click again, you have to have the Command key. Continue to hold that down. I'm going to hit E, and I want to hold down the Command key and then select G. So those are all selected now. Let's say I want to change the color of those columns. I want them red. Oh my gosh, I don't know why I chose that. That was the wrong choice. But anyway, you get the idea. So again, that feature, if you want to select certain rows or certain columns, and you want to do something with all those, but not have to do C and then E and then G, I'm going to do it again. So it's hold down the Command key and click the columns you want. So C, E, and G. And then while those are highlighted, then you can change, change the fonts of those, make those go centered, something like that. The other thing is if you hold down the Command key and it's like, oh, I messed up. I really didn't want column G in there at all. If you're holding down the Command key, you can click that column again and maybe, let's try again. Let's see if I'm lying. I thought you could undo it. Maybe I'm okay. I misspoke. I thought you could unselect the column if you kept holding down the Command key, but I'm not having any luck with that. So, yep, good question. There's also a way to do it if you want to select things on the screen. Another way to do it more quickly, like I want just column C through G or something, like all of them, that section. If you hold down the Shift key when you're selecting, it will select everything to the right of that, I believe. And one other feature that's you're really going to be, some of these I just have to play around with because I don't remember everything on it. Let's say that I have a bunch of data that's in here, a bunch of information that I want, numbers, and I want all this stuff here, and I want to select some of it. So I'm going to click here in Monday on student 1. If you hold down the Shift key and the arrow keys, it will increase. You can select that whole, I'm just clicking the right arrow key, holding down the Shift key. And if you hit the down arrow key, I'm selecting more. And like, oh, I got too much, hit the left arrow key. So I'm using the selection tool with the arrows. I'm just using the arrow keys, holding down the Shift key, and you can pick exactly what you want, because there's nothing more frustrating than when you click with your mouse and you got everything you want except that and you let go too soon and then you have to do it again. But look, I've selected that on the screen, those 6 slides or 6 cells. If I hold down the Shift key, I can add and hit the right, I can get more. If I hit the down arrow key while I'm holding down the Shift key, I can add more. If you have something selected, you can just use the Shift key and the arrow keys to select exactly what you want. And that can be really helpful when you have lots of data and you're trying to click and drag and you just miss it. And, oh, I thought I had it. So play around with that Shift, left arrow, or the arrow keys, and you can move your selection around on the screen, which can be helpful. Okay. I'm just going to check and see where I wanted to be here. Delete rows. Okay, we did that. We did autofill. Oh, checkboxes. Okay, so a lot of times when you're doing things with students that you want to just know, did they do it? Did they not do it? So checkboxes are really helpful to use, and they added that feature within the last year. So if you, let's say I want a little checkbox for Monday to say, did that student, was a student here, or did they do the work, or were they nice that day? Whatever you want it to be. So Monday, student 1, I'm going to go to Insert, and at the bottom of Insert, there's a checkbox option. And so now it puts in a checkbox, which is nice because it's still this, it matches that color of the background too. So, okay, so student 1, there's a checkbox in there for student 1, and I can check it, say yes, they did, or leave it unchecked, no, they didn't. But here's the cool thing. You've got that autofill feature to your right, that little blue box in the corners. When it turns to a plus sign when you hover your cursor over it. Click and drag it across, and you don't have to keep putting insert, insert, insert for each day of the week. You can drag, use the autofill. And look, I did the student one Monday through Friday, but look, the auto box button is still there. I can use it to drag down and do it for all my students now. So I did Monday through Friday for student one. Click that autofill button and drag it down and do all your students. Boom. And real quickly, within like 2 or 3 keystrokes, you've got all of that done and filled in, which is really, really convenient. Let me do that again. Again, it's just the autofill. Once you put in a checkbox, and that's going up to insert, checkbox, and then use the autofill to drag and fill up with whatever you want. And here's another thing. Let's say you wanted to default. Let's say you, I messed up. Let's say that you wanted these to all be check marked. So these are all check marked, and I'm going to select all these. So I'm going to click and drag. So I'm selecting all of those across. I want them to all be check marked, and when I drag it, it's going to drag it, and they're all going to be check marked, and then I could uncheck them if I want to. So whatever state they're in the beginning, if you want to drag those across, you can do that as well. So anyway, that's really nice, because a lot of times you just want to know, did they do it? Did they not? Do I put a yes in there, or no, a Y, and in? And the checkbox feature is really, really nice for that. Okay. So checkbox. Now we're going to do something that you may or may not know is available to you in Google Classroom. I'm going to jump to my Google Classroom. If you get to the place where you have an assignment page, where you go in and you see who turned in the assignment, how many assignments you gave, and everybody here. These are not students; these are paras at my school. If you get to this page, and it doesn't matter which assignment you go to in your particular class that you have, you just need to go to an assignment page on there. And when you go there, up to the top right is the gearbox, or the little settings thing. And there's an option to copy all grades to a Google Sheet. So, and again, it doesn't matter which assignment. It's not doing it's doing all the assignments for that particular Google Classroom. So you can click copy all grades to a Google Sheet. And if you click that button, now I don't have really any grades in here, or not very many for this particular class. But when you click it, it makes its own Google Sheet. It gives you the title. It gives the student's last name, first name, their email, the score, how much it was for that assignment. If they had actually done the assignment and I gave them a grade, it would be in here. If it was missing, it would say missing in here as well. But all your assignments at that point, whenever you hit that button, will show up in the spreadsheet, and you could, do some work with the data from it right from Google Classroom. It also gives you a link right back up here, a live link that takes you back to your original Google Classroom where the data came from. So this is, again, a real nice feature. I'm going to show it again. So again, if you're on in here, you need to get to classwork, and you need to get to an assignment. I had problems with that last time. Let's see if I can do it. Yeah, so now I'm on the assignments page for that particular class. And when you're on that page, and again, it doesn't matter which assignment you go to, as long as you get to this page in your classroom, click it and copy all grades to a Google Sheet, and it will make that Google Sheet for you. And it will look more like this one. It will give you the average, the class average at the top. It'll give you that student's percentages. These are fake student names, by the way. And it gives you the test name, what the score was, and what those particular students got on that one as well. So that could be really useful for some data analysis using Google Classroom. All right, let me just check my thing here real quick here. Oh, okay. Another thing that Google Sheets has really got good at in the last year or so, they've programmed in here, is inserting images. So it used to be you just had, they were black and white spreadsheets, and you had numbers in them or text in them, but now you can do a lot more with them. So right here, I'm going to make these boxes a little bigger. I'm going to select all and make the boxes a little bit bigger so I can see what's going on. I'm going to delete these 2 rows. Oh, there's a problem. There's always a problem. I'm going to delete these 2 rows. Okay, now instead of putting data or text in here, I'm going to put an image. So I'm going to select this box and I'm going to go to Insert. I'm going to go down to Image and I'm going to put, you have a choice here. You can put the image in an exact cell, or you can make the image hover over the top and you can slide it and put it wherever you want onto your spreadsheet. So let's put it in a particular cell the first time. So I'm going to insert an image. I'm going to choose from my screen Google image search, and I'm going to search for toe. No, not toe fungus. That's not right. Okay, how about toe? Okay, so we're going to put a toe. Okay, we're going to put this toe in there. All right, so and that image will go right in that particular box. If you make the box bigger, the image will fill in whatever is the smallest dimension that it fits in properly into that. The other thing that you can do, same thing, it'll auto fill as well. So you see the box is highlighted and there's blue. If you wanted a bunch of that, you can fill a bunch of those images in the other ones as well. So you can do those kind of things with images. But the other way to do things with images in a Google Sheet is you can go to Image and Image Over Cells. And I'm going to do the exact same thing. Go to Google. I'm going to pick a better topic this time. I'm going to pick, okay, maybe it's not a better topic, but pig. And I'm going to pick a piggies, pig, maybe. Okay, we'll pick this one. All right. And this one, oh, did I do the hover over? Yeah, okay. So this one actually hovers over. It's not dedicated to one particular cell, but I can make it float over different cells and put it wherever I want it to be. So you could potentially, like, let's say I had information on the screen and I didn't want other people to see what it was, or student, I just want to present it, but I just want to hide something on the screen. You could put an image and cover up that data for some reason, or if there's some other activity you wanted to, just to decorate things, make it pretty, you could just have this. And this one is free floating, and the other one is locked into a cell. You can't move this one anywhere you want, but you could like copy and paste it and put it in other cells, things like that. And finally, just on the image features that they've got in Google Sheets is you can insert and you can also put in a drawing. And this is nice. You can make your own drawing right inside of Google Sheet. You don't have to go to drawings, Google Drawings. You can make whatever you want to in here, and it will put it right. You can put your text in and do whatever you want it to be and do nice shapes and put images and create a great thing. And then you can pop it in here and it floats on the screen as well. And you can put it wherever you want to on the screen. So you can do some really cool images. I'll show you some of the ones that I did. Like, these are just pictures, but I made this over here is a Google image that I created from in that Google drawings, I mean. So there's lots of neat things that you can put on your spreadsheet. This is a nice drag and drop activity. So I'm just using the block feature of a Google Sheet to make a drag and drop. So you can, this is, would be for obviously for younger kids, but you could put images in and have them put them in particular boxes. And these are, the Google drawings. I will say one thing with the Google drawings. If they're Google drawings, if a student would double click, it would go to the student editor and they could edit it, which could be an advantage and could be a problem. But you could put stuff in as images or as a drawing. The one thing I will say about what is the one thing I will say? My mind totally went blank there for a second. So I don't know what I was going to say. It was going to be really good too. So sorry you missed that. But anyway, there's lots of really cool things that you can do that you wouldn't have been able to do in the past. I'll show you one more thing, which if you were at my workshop before, I showed the same one. But this is a spreadsheet that I made that automatically generates different math problems. If you click the button, I put in a formula that says, if this button, if something changes on the screen to change these numbers. And so I made this little number line thing where the students could move this thing, the number line, to answer one of the questions. If they click it, they get a new problem. And then I use this image hover over thing to hide the answers so that they could practice, and then they put it back and they could practice their answer. You can see there's lots of things that you could do with Google Sheets with these images and things you can move on the screen that you couldn't do before. So play around with those. And there's lots of fun things that you can kind of look at. And if you have questions about it, I'd be glad to answer those. It's hard to cover all that in this session, but think of Google Sheets as not just, I just do numbers and data with it. There's lots of things that you can do to be engaging with it, either making assignments for students or just make it more interesting for yourself. Chase,
hey, Brad.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, quick question. Is there a way that you could put more than one checkbox in a cell? Or are you only limited to one?
No, I think you're limited to one, because what it does is that it really is an indicator. If you check it off, that box is considered true. And if it's not checked, it's a false box. So I'll just show you so the short answer is you can only put one checkbox in a box. But if you're using them to, spreadsheets are great for adding things up and doing things. I haven't even been doing very much of that here. But let's say it was student one. They weren't here Monday, Tuesday, but they were here Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. If in the box on the far right-hand side over here, I want to have it add up how many times a student was here this week, and I could do a formula and hit the question mark is how we put in formulas. So equals, I'm going to do this feature called Countif, and I'm going to do a bracket. And every time you try to put in a formula, it tells you what you need to put in there. So it's really nice. It's right there, and we'll walk you through it. And the formula bar at the top, there's lots of great videos. I usually, if I want to do something in a Google Sheet, I type it in a Google search and say, I want it to be able to add this and that. How do I do it? And then there's tons of videos, and I just watch it and I relearn it again. But this is a nice feature. This is called Countif, and I have to put in the range and what I want to count. Okay, so I've got that. Now this box gets in my way. So there's a little up arrow, which is might be hard to see on your screen, but there's a minimize arrow. So it's still up there, but it gets out of my way. I want to click and hold Monday and drag it all the way across. That's the range. That's where I want it to count. And then I have to put in a comma, and it says, what's the criteria? What do you want it to count? Well, I'm going to put in these checkboxes are either true or false. And I want to count how many trues there are, how many check marks there are. So I have to put a quote, and I put in true, end quote. So it's a little bit, I hope it's not too much formula for everybody, or too little for some. I put that in there, and then the formula will count up how many check boxes are in that, or how many trues there were from those particular check boxes. So it's a nice feature, but it's I think the nature of that particular feature is it's saying that box, it's either a true statement or a false statement. I don't know that you can add anything else to it. But the other nice thing, again, if you make a formula about how to count Monday through, how many check boxes you have, you can drag this Countif formula. And if I had more boxes here, I'm going to drag these down, it will add up how many days they were here. So you don't have to do even the addition. You can just look over here and see what they did. So again, this is using those check boxes, and then a simple formula. I shouldn't say simple formula. Using the formula Countif, you can have it count how many times, how many check boxes are in that row or in that column. So anyway, I would look those up and play around with those. Those are a really quick, easy way to say, who ordered that shirt or whatever we're doing in our class, this or that. You can use that checkbox and the Countif feature. Okay, long-winded question. I probably partially answered that question. Okay. All right, here's a really, I'm going to do two more things, and then we'll take a little bit, we'll take some more questions. Number one, you may or may not know that if you have some data in a spreadsheet, let's say that there's, let's go to a different one. Let's go different data. Let's go to Sorry for the. Okay, so here's some data, and say this is great data, and I want to use this in my Google Doc. So I'm going to select the data that I want, the student's name and the information there. Let's say that is the data. That's probably too. I'm going to keep it smaller so it's easier to see on the screen for you guys. So okay, so I've got some data and I've highlighted it. I'm just using Command C, but you can right click and go to copy. I like this data and I want to use it in a Google Doc. You can open up a Google document, excuse me, and I've copied that data, and now I'm just going to paste it. So you could right click and paste, or Control or Command C or Command V, sorry. And it gives you this option, says, do you want to link the data from that spreadsheet to this document so that if you change your spreadsheet, your document changes? You can do that, or you can just no, I just want to paste it here. I don't care if it changes there. I'm going to link it to the spreadsheet. And so I'm clicking that. So then all the data that I selected is now in my Google document that I could share with somebody. And if you are the owner of this document that's been linked and anything changes in the spreadsheet, sorry, I got lots of this. Okay, let's say I change a number in here to 30, any kind of change that you make in the spreadsheet in that section, it will eventually, oh, there, and you'll see, I'm going to try to zoom in to see if you can see it better. You'll see on your, if you're the owner and looking at the document, it'll say update. Do you want to update the data? And you click it and say, yes, I want the most updated data from the spreadsheet, and we'll update the data. I put in 30 right here, and this is now it's updated in my Google Doc that's linked to it. You can link data from a spreadsheet to a Google Doc. You can link it to a Google Slide. You can link charts from there as well. So if you make a line chart from your data in a Google Sheet, and then you copy and paste that chart somewhere else and you change the data, it will also say, do you want to link it? And if you do, you can update that data to get the most updated information. So again, you just copy the data from the spreadsheet that you want. You paste it into the document or slide that you want, and then you want to click that, yes, I want to link it, if you want it to be live information that changes periodically. And that can be very very helpful for different situations. That's kind of nice too, because then if you could give somebody access to this document but not give them access to your data, so they can look at the information but not mess up your data, and they're looking at this, and you could have that updated every so often. That could be a potential way to use that. Okay, one last thing. Here's a really cool feature. And if you don't know this, I think you'll like this. Let's say that you and somebody else are working on data together. You've created a spreadsheet, they're entering stuff in, and you want to know if they've changed information, if they've added information. Let's also say that you're on a spreadsheet that's hooked up to a Google form, where you have made a Google form that somebody's filling out, and you want to be notified when somebody fills out the form. What you can do in a Google Sheet is that you can, let's say it's this data, and I want to be notified if anybody changes information on this spreadsheet. Or and if it's linked to a form, if anybody does another form thing and enters information, it'll change the spreadsheet. So I'll get a notification. I want to get an email notification if anything changes on the spreadsheet. So you go to Tools, you go to Notifications, and this already has one, so I'm going to delete that one. You want to delete it? Yes. Okay. So I want to add another notification rule, and I want it to notify me of any changes made to this spreadsheet. This is especially helpful if you're working with somebody else in a spreadsheet or using a Google form and you want to know if somebody's filling stuff out. So I'm going to, any change made on the spreadsheet, or you can see also if a user submits a form is also an option. You can get that email notification every day, like at the end of the day, you'll get one notification of all the changes, or you can get an email whenever it gets changed. So I'm going to do it right away. If it gets changed, I want to get an email sent to me. And I hit save, and then I think I just hit done. And now if anybody who I've shared this document with changes the document, I'll know, and then I can go in and look at that information, which can be, I had somebody keeping information on new students, and they had a list of all the students, and I had to update different lists for them if a new student came in. And so she didn't have to tell me every time she updated the list. I just knew if she changed that spreadsheet, I got an email that said, oh, there's something else on there. You might want to look at it. So that could be a helpful feature. Okay, I'm going to open up for questions for a little bit here, and then if there's none, we'll move on.
Yeah, there's no other questions.
Okay, stunned silence. Perfect. Okay, great. All right, so let's. Okay, I'm going to do a couple things. I love data validation and things that'll make things change colors, but I want to do a couple things with data first, and then with some text. Sorry, it takes me a second to find my bearings. Okay, so let's look at this. Let's say that you got this spreadsheet and it's all a mess. Like on the left-hand side, there's, I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit. There's like extra spaces before the name. Some of them have extra spaces in between the names or afterwards. There's lots. It's all a big mess. So I'm going to show you a couple things that you can do with this to kind of help with the text stuff if you get something sent to you and it's a mess. Number one, I can't even read all the stuff because the columns aren't the right width or the rows aren't the right height. So I'm going to select all on this one. I'm going to double click on a column in between two columns just to make the columns the right width so I can see everything. Okay, so everything fits from left to right. I'm now going to double click on the row height so I can see everything in the rows. Okay, so I now can at least see the mess clearly. Now, you know, these names, like they've got spaces before, too many in between. I don't know what's going on. So there is a tool, and there's many tools like this. This is just an example of one. Let's say this is called trim. So I'm going to put right next to this, I'm going to put the first student, I'm going to put equal, and I'm going to put trim, T-R-I-M, and parentheses on the left-hand side. And it says, oh, what text do you want to trim? Okay, I want to do Warren Nelson. These are all made-up names, by the way. And if you'll see, I think you can see on this up above, it says what it's going to look like when it gets trimmed. And you can see it took away the empty space before his name, like somebody hit the space bar before they put it in. So yes, that's what I want. And now you can see it like trimmed it up. It just has a space in between the words, but it took out the extra ones before. And it would do, if there's ones in between, too many spaces in between, it would take that out as well. Now, this is a formula that's saying, look at the box to the left and trim the information to make it a little bit cleaner. It's a formula. I can drag formulas using that autofill. So I'm going to drag this, and I'm going to clean up all this list of students. And so all the names are, you know, there's no extra spaces. It's all looks a lot nicer. It even changed the size of it, this font, so it's not like a crazy size font there as well. So that's great. One of the other things that happens though is, and it happened here, is that, well, it happened because I put it that way, but is that the first name of the student and the last name are in the same column. I don't know how many times it's happened to me. It's like, but I want to sort by the last name, and I can't, it's not searchable that way or sortable. So sortable, is that a word? Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this. It says Warren Nelson right here on the left, and there's a feature called split text. And I'm going to select all of these things I just trimmed to make it look a lot nicer. And there's tons of these text features, tools and things that are in there. If you can think of something, there's probably a function in there if you need it. So I've selected all the names, and now I want to split it. I want the first name to stay in that box, and I want the last name to go to the next box, the empty box or column to the right. So what you do, you highlight all the ones you want to split. You go to data, and you go slide down to the bottom, and it says split text to columns. You hit it, and down below it says detect automatically. Oh, okay, I want to sort this by, there's a space in between the words, so I'm going to hit space. So the first name stayed in the first column. There was the last name had a space in between them, and they went to the next column over. So now I've got first names here, last names to the right, and now the world is good again. So again, that feature is, I'm going to do it again. Select all the words that you want to split as first and last name, or whatever it is you want to do, and then make sure there's an empty column to the right of it. Go to data, and then slide down to split text to columns. It will ask you what's the split? What am I looking for? A comma, a period, or whatever. You can hit space because that's what it is in this case. And there you go. Now you've got the last names there, and then you can move them to put them before, all kinds of stuff. Okay.
All right, Brad, can you show us real quick how you can merge cells?
Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, I didn't even do that last time. Okay, so merge cells. So let's say, and there's and I'll do it this way, and if that person has a different idea, because there's a couple of different ways to think about it, I'm going to back out just a second here. Okay, so I'm on this one, this first one that I made, and I'm going to put a row above. I'm just hitting insert or hit that. Okay, but let's say I want to put a title across the whole thing. If I put the text in this box, like title, it'll center there, but I want it centered across the whole thing. So what you can do is if you click and select that box and hold down the mouse or the trackpad and drag across everything that you want to be one box or merge into one thing. So so I'm going to go at the top. It's called merge cells at the top. If I click it, oh, there's a problem. Oh, because they're frozen. Okay, I got to unfreeze them. It doesn't like to do that with frozen cells. And then the other thing that they're saying with merge, and I'll address that as well, might be that you want text from one box and you want to merge it with text from another box, or cell from another box, and I can show you that as well. This is how you merge cells. There's a little button at the top. It has two little arrows pointing together. If you click it, everything in that cell, on those cells that you selected, becomes one cell. And if you wanted to center it in the cell, you can hit the center button. If you wanted it centered from top to bottom, there's also a button at the top for that. So now my title is centered across all of the columns there, and they're all acting as if they are one row together. Now, if the question was, I have some text in one cell, and I have text in another cell. I'm just trying to find it. Okay, I'm going to move some things around here. Left. Let's just make this really big to get that out of my way. Okay, let's say that I have, and these fonts are way too small for you guys, or too small for me, and that's way too big. Okay, we'll get there. And that is just right. Okay, now let's say I have Warren is right here in this one, and last name, but I really do want them in the exact same box. Let's see. I don't know what merging does, to be honest. Can't do that. Okay. Oh no, it won't work. Okay. So you can do this with a formula. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put enter, and that means I'm enter. I'm putting in equals, which means I'm going to put in a formula, and I'm going to select, I want the first name box. So I just selected B3. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Okay, I've selected B3, and that's showing up in my formula. When you want to add text together, text from one box and add it to text in another box, you use the ampersand, the ampersand symbol, and say, okay, I want Warren, and I want to add it to another box, and I could click Nelson, and it's saying in my formula, it says B3, which is Warren, add it to C3 and put it in this box. So I'm going to hit enter. Now, the problem with doing it the way I did is, yes, it put it together, but it put no space in between, which I really wouldn't want to do. So I'm going to double click on my formula, and or you could go up to the formula bar at the top. And in between that first ampersand and C3, I'm going to put in a quote. a space, and another quote, and I'm going to put another ampersand. So what the formula is saying is it's going to take the stuff that's in box B3 and with the ampersand, it's going to add it to a space because I put it between quotes. I want a space, ampersand, and then I want to put the text in C3 there. So now it should say Warren space Nelson. Or if I wanted to, I could put a comma in there or any other information I wanted to type in between the quotes. It's just adding that text to it. So you can do however you want with that. But you can do it a formula way of merging two things together that way with a formula. And again, because you can autofill things, if I want to do that with all of my stuff, I can do it with one, and I can do it with all of that information as well. Of course, I think I just put a comma between the first name and last. It should be the other way. Anyway, you get the idea. I could change my formula around and put C3 in the beginning, and then put B3 at the end, and then I've actually changed it. So now I've got, oops, undo. Maybe if I did it right, okay. Don't be too hard on yourself, okay. And then B3. There you go. And now I've just changed it around. So now it's last name, first name, and it's just a fairly simple formula. And I could drag that formula down. And now I've just changed everything so that it's in the format maybe that I wanted it to be from before. So I've got last name, comma, first name. And that's just using some simple formula techniques to do that as well. Okay. Any other questions?
There are not any questions at this time.
Okay. All right. So one last thing, and then we'll go. I hate to not go and not do at least some formatting of. I always like to show people how to do conditional formatting, which means that it'll change color depending on what's in the box. So let's say you have some data here. Here's some great information. There's some test scores that you have. I've just highlighted that data, and I want it to change color if it's below a 5. I want it to be red, and if it's above 5, I want it to be green. So it just gives you the visual clues, because a lot of times when you're looking at lots of numbers and lots of data, it's just like, just a big haze. But if you select your data and then you go to format and you go down to conditional formatting, you can put in a formula and say, okay, that's the range. I've already got that selected. That's good. What's the format rule? Okay, it's if I click on it, it'll say, oh, greater than, less than, or equal to. Okay, so if it's less than or equal to, and then in the box down below, I put 5. What I want to have happen, it's defaults to green. I don't want it to be green. The low scores I want to be red. Okay. Oh, that's the text red. I don't want that. That's wrong. I want the, come on, down, over. Okay. I want the background to be red. So there you go. So anything that's a 5 or less, the part that I selected is going to turn 5 or less is going to turn red. I can add another rule because I've already got everything selected. This time, if the data is greater than 5, I want it to turn, well, it's green, but let's make it a different color. Let's make it light purple. Oh, that will be horrible with red. No, that's wrong. Okay, we'll do green. Fine. All right, so now my data, and it's live. So this changes. So if my data changes, so if somebody had a score of 2, but then they got a score of 6, it will change color and vice versa. So this is live. It gives you that visual feedback that you can use to quickly see, what are the problem areas or what are the areas you're doing well on there as well. And you'll have access to this spreadsheet, so you can kind of play around. I think the most important thing is to not get too frustrated, but to play around with the features. And if you want to do something, just type in a Google search. Like, I want to be able to, and watch that video for a little bit, and somebody will walk you through that process. Or I'm glad if you want to send me an email saying, hey, I want to try to do this with my spreadsheet, but it's not working right. I'd be glad to answer any questions like that as well. All right, anything else that's out there? We're getting close to the end here. I did in my in the link in Canvas course. There's some links to some different videos as well in a playlist, a YouTube playlist. There's some videos in there that you can watch on Google Sheets. There are in this spreadsheet that I was working through here that you can make a copy of. I did do some graphics of how to. If you go to some of the ones on the bottom, you can. I did some graphics about how to do. Let me see if I can find it. Sorry, it's hard to. I want to keep the screen big so you can see what's on there. I did some graphics about how to freeze and unfreeze the screen, how to change the colors. So if you look through the different spreadsheets at the bottom, how to do autofill, I give some instructions and graphics about how to do that. So inside of this, there are some how to move around and select things in a spreadsheet, but largely just play around with those features as best you can. As often as you can, and search up those things that you want to do, but you can't figure out how to do it. That's kind of how I manage it. But I do have some graphics in there that you can in this document, the different sheets that will guide you along the way a little bit as well. All right.
All right, a lot of thank yous coming in. So we do appreciate your time, Brad, showing us more about Google Sheets. So.
And then I will add it to the stream.
Yeah, welcome.
So it'll look like
Welcome.
this.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for showing up, and then don't hesitate to give me a email if you have any other questions or things I can help you with.
Yep.
All right. Well, this will end our session. So hope you all have a good afternoon. And thanks again, Brad. Appreciate it.
Yeah.